Welcome everybody to another Tavern Talks podcast. This is our third podcast, and we're joined today by DeimosThea.
My name's Deimos, but a lot of people call me Day online. But in real life, my name is Chloe. I'm 23 years old. I grew up in Dubai, but I'm originally from Scotland, which is why, despite the fact that I have the red hair, I do not have the accent, unfortunately, which is something that I lament over on the daily. But so yeah, I am studying psychology full time currently, but honestly, my biggest passion is streaming, content creation, singing, and creative endeavors, I suppose. And so if I could do this for the rest of my life and have this be my path, then that would be an honor. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. I have two cats named Ori and Kuro.
But we're going to just kind of start out with when did you start streaming?
I actually started quite a while ago. But I definitely never took it seriously, I suppose. So I started in summer of 2017 when I was 19 years old. And I, at the time, didn't have any direction to it, but I was just kind of doing it for fun and chatting with my friends. And that was pretty much it. That is officially when I started streaming, I suppose. And then I only just started again properly and taking it seriously in March of last year.
Streamers feel this pressure that they have to be immediately going for affiliate, and as soon as you're an affiliate you have to immediately be going for partner and things like that. It puts a lot of pressure on people to think that you have to be a certain thing or go for a certain goal just to be a streamer.
It doesn't just put pressure, but it also just at least for me, I'm someone who I tunnel vision really hard with things, and I find it quite difficult to divide my attention across a lot of different pursuits, which is weird because I do have a lot of interests. It can be really difficult for me to try and separate streaming from the rest of my life and view it as just one of the aspects of my life. I become very kind of tunnel vision and focused in on it, which is a part of the reason that I kind of took a lot of time off throughout my streaming career, if you want to call it that. And I think it is really important that streamers of any level, if you even want to say the word level, kind of are encouraging a healthy lifestyle and a healthy kind of balance between streaming, content creating, but also the rest of your life and your other pursuits outside of streaming.
I think it's very important. I think a lot of people, they don't necessarily practice self-care when it comes to streaming. It becomes really hard to take days off because, at least for me, and I don't know if you have these thoughts, well, if I take a week off, am I suddenly going to not be there for my community? Are the community going to be there when I get back? And all these worries at the start of streaming for me made me go I can't take time off. And it took me a long time to get to where it sounds like you are, where you're I need to take a break for my own well-being.
I wouldn't even say that I'm there, to be perfectly honest with you, actually, not at all. I think one of my biggest fears is actually kind of irrational, and that's that I will one day just turn my stream on and no one will join. There's always that fear of I've put X amount of effort, and for a lot of us, it's a lot of freaking effort and a lot of time that goes into setting up streams. There is always that fear of, what if people just don't care anymore? That's something that's really scary. And I think that's something that's scary in anything kind of creative or self-made project that you have. It's really difficult to get past that point of fearing that people may not be interested and people may not want to be there for that content. And I think it's important that you're able to identify that those fears are irrational, but it's also really difficult to actually do that. And it's so much easier said than done because it is a normal feel if it's something you care about. I think also the thing that's very important to note as any streamer within whatever content, whether you're trying to branch out of your regular content or whether you're just sticking to the content that you usually do, is that there's going to be good and bad days. There's going to be good and bad weeks. And you might have a week where your channel pops off, and you may have a week literally right after that where it's a little bit slower. And that's something that you always get pushed, this idea of exponential growth, or this idea of you're going to get discovered and then that's it. It's going to just be, your channel's going to blow up and then you're never going to drop viewers. But of course, that's not true. I mean, every single one of your viewers has a life of their own. They're all a person of their own, and they have all of their needs that they need to attend to. And so it's so easy to get caught up in the idea of numbers, but it's also very unproductive, of course, because I mean, if a bunch of people have a lot to do on that day, of course you're going to have lower view counts than if everyone's just chilling at home. I mean, it's just rational, but your brain doesn't let it be rational.
I have to kind of do the same thing, which is remind myself, no, even if it's a really small day, go out there and just do what you were going to do no matter what.
All. Yeah. It's super important to have that mentality, and that's something that took me a while to develop, and something that I just didn't understand. I just didn't get it. And it's kind of embarrassing how long it took me to understand that. But that no matter how many people are there, the same amount of effort should go into every single stream. I mean, it's also very easy as you start maybe gaining a little bit more of an audience, which I've been lucky enough to see, quite a bit of growth in the last few months. And I feel very fortunate to have that. But at the same time, I've had to sit back at times and just remind myself of the position that I'm in and be like, just because there's more people in my chat doesn't mean that the amount of effort that I put in individually should be lower just because more people are carrying the content by creating conversation. I should still be putting 100% in at all times, even if there's 20 more people than there were a week prior, or even if there's even more than that. If there's a bunch of people in chat, it doesn't make a freaking difference. I still am the one that has to be creating conversation. I have to be instigating. I'm the entertainer. We are the entertainers. And that is something that I think the bigger your numbers get, it's even more important that you keep reminding yourself of that, because when you're a streamer at the beginning, you have to do all of the entertainment by yourself, and that should never change. You should always be the one that, I mean, it's your stream, you're the one that has to be putting the effort in. I think I've just gone on a very large tangent, but apparently I care about this topic.
No, I was gonna say that just shows passion for the topic, which is awesome. But I view it like being a party host. Sure, if the party's bumping, everybody's there, everybody's in their own conversations, everybody's mingling, you still have to be keeping an eye on everything, keeping things like focused and making sure people aren't just like having to like take care of themselves or have to worry about, certain things. Like we're not taking care of, well, not all the time, but we're not taking care of like drunk people at a party like I used to, but at the same time, we still are making sure like toxic people don't come into our communities that ruin people's days, provide the content, provide the safe space for people to find each other. Or safe space might not be the correct word.
Well, I actually think safe space also does apply in the sense of having the ability to identify when someone is not best serving your community. And if someone is continuously coming in and causing issues, then they either need to be spoken to or, timed out, whatever it is. I think that is important because people should feel that when they're in your stream and when they're kind of involved in your community, that they are safe and they're respected. And I think creating that space is something that, again, is underrated, especially as a small streamer, because you want to make sure that every single one of your viewers there is having a good time, not just the troll.
Yeah.
And it's I think safe space applies from that perspective as well.
I am going to roll the conversation back just a little bit. In your own words, what would you describe as a streamer is your style?
There's a few things that I focus on in my streams, but I think the primary one is I want it to be as relaxing as possible. By far, the most important thing to me. Yes, I want people to be laughing and having a good time, but the number one priority for me is the relaxation element, which is why you'll notice that most of my music is kind of lo-fi, retrowave kind of background music, not very much kind of vocal stuff. Obviously that's a little bit to do with DMCA, but even prior to DMCA being a thing, that would always be the case. That's the same with kind of every aspect of my stream. Is I want everything to be quite simple and approachable. Like I keep all the UIs very simple. I try and just create an environment where you can come in and it's going to like soothe your anxiety. I deal a lot with anxiety myself, and so I want someone to click on that stream and feel the way that I do when I click on someone's stream who has that same energy, that energy of like, you can come here and you can either lurk in the background or you can be a part of it, and you're just going to feel like at peace. That's what I want more than anything. I obviously have a focus on mental health as someone who's studying psychology, but also has, dealt with a lot of mental health things in my life. That is just such a huge focus for me. And so when I create, everything that I create in my stream is geared primarily towards that. That being said, we do have a laugh. Like it's definitely we're not super serious all the time. And I would never want that either. Focusing on that relaxation, but also just, mixing it up a little bit as well would be the best way to describe it.
The reason I like to ask the kind of the style question is streamers are very different. Even if we're all in the same, say we're in the same category, we're all playing Elder Scrolls. Each of us is a very different and unique person, and there's a lot of overlap, but it draws kind of different people there, or they might go to certain streams for different reasons. They might go to high energy stream, like a Biz Lobo stream, because they just want to be pumped up. They might go to your stream because it's lo-fi, it's chill.
They come there to like cool down after Biz Lobo stream. There's like
really interesting how streamers develop their brand. I've realized since streaming, people consider words like networking, brand, and things like that. Some people view them almost as negative words, when I think what's happening is there's a misconception on what a brand is, what networking actually is.
At the end of the day, networking is a vital aspect of streaming in itself, and any type of social media that you're trying to grow on. Networking is vital to do that. And actually, if you even want to go further than that, in any job that you're going to be in your life, you will have to network. That is just how the world works. And so I think people who give streamers crap for doing that, interpret it as fake, are just kind of maybe a little naive to the way that the world works. I mean, in any industry that you want to work in, you're going to have to network and get your name out there somehow, because otherwise people are just not going to know who you are. They're not going to know what you have to offer. That being said, I think there is definitely a way and means about going and networking. I don't think it's very appropriate, obviously, to go into someone's channel, kind of infringe on their space in an attempt to grow your channel. Obviously, I think the vast majority of people would say that that is very, very rude. And I think if I can, I try to draw the least attention to myself possible when I'm watching my friend's stream or anything like that. Even though obviously some viewers overlap and they want to talk to you and they want to mention things that happened in your stream, it's very important to give the streamer that you're watching their space. And the reason I mentioned that is because obviously as a streamer myself, I do like to watch my friends' streams. I like to be there for them. I like to give them the support that they offer me. But I think it's really important that that support comes from a genuine place and you're not trying to draw attention to yourself by being there. I think that's really, really important. And I think it obviously shows when people are doing that. It's very, very clear. And you can tell as a streamer when someone is in there just trying to get clout. And there's not many of them, luckily, in the ESO community, which we're lucky. But there are some, and there's always going to be those people. And it is also possible that they are very well-meaning and they just haven't had as much experience networking. And having that genuine understanding of how networking works is really important, and something that I think also does come a little bit with time equally. The reason I'm even here is I came into your channel, found your talk with Sakar, and was like, oh, this is so cool. And that immediately, started the flow of what has now become this interview. And that's a very good example of, like, I would like to say that we've done some good networking. It's not fake. It's very genuine, and I hope people can see that. I think that's very important. And the other thing I would like to maybe just say is that if you're a smaller streamer than someone, please do not think that you do not have value to add by being in a networking relationship with them or even being their friend. I think it can be really easy to doubt what value you have, but it's really important that, the only way that you're going to get people to believe in your channel is if you believe in your channel and in your brand and in what you have to offer. If you're a smaller streamer than someone, numerically, that does not mean that your value is less. That just means that you haven't had much exposure. And always go into every single networking interaction with the concept of, I have value to offer to this relationship.
When you started streaming, what was your goal? It doesn't have to be like a numerical goal unless your goal was numerical. And how has that changed? What are your goals now?
So when I first came back to streaming from my 2-year break, honestly, I was in such a bad headspace at that point in my life. I would honestly, and I've actually spoken about this on stream before, is that I actually feel like I was in a very selfish headspace in that point of my life. And very defensive and very almost like my goals were numerical because I was just very, very up in my own world and just not really connecting with anyone else. And as a result of that, that is potentially why I didn't really network and I didn't really get to know anyone in the streaming industry, because I just wasn't in the right headspace to do that. At that point, it was like, oh, I'm just going to keep streaming and my channel will grow. And it didn't really have a goal, I suppose. Maybe that was the biggest issue of all. And then after I took a 4-month break and I really had a lot of things to work on at that point, I took a lot of time. I was quite introspective and really just looked at what was really bothering me and what I was dealing with and why I was deflecting and behaving like a total ass in a lot of cases. And I think after that, I came back with a very refreshed perspective of what I wanted to achieve. And it was provide people with something like a safe space and provide content that was going to bring people out of dark times. With that goal in mind, I definitely have seen a lot more of a positive growth because people are starting to see a genuine side of what I'm putting out there and what I'm providing. But not only that, I think looking at every single person that I've met through streaming and every viewer, every other streamer, whatever, whoever it is, as an individual has really been an important part of my growth. I really made a focus on individual cases and made a focus on trying to develop a relationship with every single person that comes into my channel. And that was my biggest goal. And it spoke for itself. I would say my goal hasn't really changed now. Sure, numerical goals are always going to be there because I think naturally the human brain likes to think in those like numbers and those goals that you can attain. But my goal of just creating that safe space and meeting everybody and just chatting and enjoying my time with everyone has stayed the same throughout. It's only become more of a goal for me because the more people that come into my channel, the more excited I am to meet them and the more that I want to just have that interaction with them. My biggest thing, if I want to go into the future, then, you know, there's definitely a route that I want to take, you know, the way that I want to see my channel and my content grow over time. But I think the most important thing is to kind of look at things in increments and focus on the next best thing rather than focusing too far in the future and having crazy big plans. I have dreams, but I'm not gonna mega focus on those at the moment, I guess.
My belief is the most important thing to focus on is the content. A lot of people talk about like, I'm going to get that big raid. Something's going to happen. I'm going to pop off. And I think,
oh yeah, I have a lot of opinions about that.
And I think the people that pop off are the people that put in a lot of work and dedication, because then if that happens, a big raid comes through, that opportunity comes along, and you're able to snatch it, you know, that lottery ticket or whatever happens. If you're developed, then like that could be net positive. If you're not developed, then that's just going to be like one good blip and it's going to stay the same, in my opinion, at least.
I 100% agree with you. And I think that's actually a really nice way of putting it, is that the content is not ready. Not that it won't ever be ready, but that it is not currently in a position where people want to stick around and be there for it. Raiding obviously is a very, very, very great way to grow your channel, but it's only going to grow your channel if you have already put in the amount of effort that it takes to actually produce good content and content that people want to see. Like, genuinely speaking, if I raid into a channel, or if anyone raids into a channel, if that person is just not talking to their chat, they're just on the Discord call with their friends and streaming the game, which, by the way, there is nothing wrong with that, but that's not going to grow a channel. That's not what people are going to stay and watch for. Raiding into that channel is fundamentally useless for that person. And that's exactly why it is so important to have those goals in your mind of like, what do I want my channel to be? What do I want to achieve by streaming? And if it is just to chat with your friends and stream, good for you. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But in terms of a very competitive platform, which Twitch is, obviously your content needs to stand out in some way, and it needs to have some sort of flow that people resonate with. Yeah, I think that's super, super important, is making that kind of differentiation between, oh, this person, and also not having that mentality of, you know, this person got raided, that's why they have these views. No, like, and also if you have ever got raided as someone who's maybe watching this channel and think, oh, this is where my success came from. No, you built your success. Someone believing in you does not mean that you did not make the effort to create content that people want to continue watching and come back for. And I think it is a good thing to be able to reflect on your content and be like, you know what, maybe the reason that people aren't sticking around, or maybe the reason that I'm losing some viewers here and there, is because I haven't, like, you know, taking a hard look at what content am I putting out there? Is it up to the usual standard? Is there areas that I need to improve on? I think that's totally valid. There's nothing wrong with that at all. That's something that's honestly a smart thing to do. You should be able to look at your content and be like, this isn't my best content. I'm gonna fix that. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
There is great advice out there, but people get really stuck on there's only one way to do things. There's only one way to grow. There's only one way to do this or that. And I think that's really detrimental. That's why I wanted to do the podcast, is because there isn't only one way to do things.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, that's kind of the most important thing, is that your content in some way stands out, and that you as an individual are sharing something that resonates with you and therefore will resonate with the people who choose to come and watch you. That, yes, obviously you can still be improving on your content. That doesn't mean changing the niche that you fit into and the niche that you aspiring towards. It just means obviously continuing to push yourself and be the best streamer that you can be, whatever that is or whatever that means for you and for your community. And it is a very individual thing for everybody, as you're saying. There is a lot of people, of course, who are like, numbers mean nothing to me, whatever. Yeah, totally. I think numbers at the end of the day, variable. They're going to change. They're going to be ebbs and flows, as there is in every aspect of life. And I think getting caught up in it is very detrimental to your growth and to your mental health. But at the same time, being aware of them without getting caught up in them, I think that is the key. And that is obviously something that, that's a balance that is hard to strike. That's not something that's easy. Trying to be aware of something without kind of obsessing over it is something that is probably the most effective way to do well with anything, but it's a very difficult thing to grasp hold of.
I think a lot of people, like, I don't think everybody who streams deals with that, but I think a lot of streamers deal with that, trying to strike that balance, being able to be self-critical without being mean to yourself. And I think a lot of people are very mean to themselves.
I think the key thing is accountability. It's looking at what effect am I having and what am I creating, and everything, just being aware that, because I'm choosing to be a streamer, I'm choosing to put myself out there and my content. A, I should be creating something I want to watch. And B, if that is not the case, I should be able to sit back, look at it and be like, you know what? This is not good enough. I would not watch this content. Being critical of yourself, yeah, it doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't have to be, oh, you're not doing good enough. It just means, it's almost like kind of separating emotion from it for a second and be like, it doesn't matter. Like, let's not beat ourselves up about this. Everyone goes through things in life when they're just, they're not doing their best. They're really just not putting their best foot forward. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But as long as you recognize it and make it change, then it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Definitely don't beat yourself up about it.
Some of the things we talked about as far as taking care of yourself, recognizing, like, finding balance, is support networks. What's your support network like? Because obviously this is a job, a career path, a hobby, whatever, that has a huge toll on the psyche.
I'm actually super, super fortunate in the support network that I have. And I honestly think it's probably the biggest reason that I'm even here, able to sit down, have this conversation and have any platform to speak of. Not to negate obviously my own efforts, but my support network has been incredible and I am so thankful to each and every one of them. I think the biggest thing I would say is my mods, actually, is the majority of my mods are some of my closest friends ever and continuously pull me out of my spirals where I start second guessing every little action that I do. But also are just continuously there for me. I mean, like, we have Mothica in the chat right now. She's and Husky as well. Both of them are my mods. Mothica actually is my oldest and dearest friend. We've known each other since we were 11 years old. And having someone who's believed in you for that long is it's a great feeling. Not only that, I've been super, super fortunate to have met Minnie Marie, who obviously you spoke about earlier. She really has taken me under my wing, and there have been other streamers who I've met along the way who have been super influential, but we've become super, super close over the last few months, and I have learned so many lessons from her, and that's been a really great thing, and something that is, that you can't put a price on that. It's been incredible. And then yes, I do have my partner as well, who he is very good at telling me that I'm being way too hard on myself. I am pretty hard on myself at times and get into ruts where I just can't seem to get myself off of my sofa or out of my bed. And he's pretty good at helping me and kind of giving me a kick up the ass kind of a thing. There's a lot of people I have to thank, I suppose.
So earlier you were mentioning, like, being able to tell when, somebody is trying to just, like, come into a community because they're looking to get something, or when they're trying to genuinely interact with it. And I think that's important to talk about a bit, because I get really in my head about that. I don't know if, not that specifically.
I get that so much.
Oh, do you? Okay. That's what I was curious, is like, if it's like a more common than I thought, because I'm like, no, I just want to, just here to hang out.
Oh, I don't know if it's common, but yeah, I deal with that a lot. Like, every single time I go into a friend's channel at this point, I do get a shout out, or even someone who, a lot of the time now, I guess because of the ESO community being quite small and niche, I'll go into a channel for the first time and I'll get a shout out and someone will know who I am. And I'm like, what? Why do you know me? Like, what the f is going on? Like, how? And so that really, like, Yeah, I do kind of. I'm in those situations. It's not too bad because if I've come into a channel for the first time, I feel like it's pretty obvious that I'm not just in there for a shout out. But if it's, someone whose stream I'm in every single time, a really key example is, of course, Mary, because I am in every single one of her streams, no matter what. And obviously, a lot of the time I actually do stay quiet for a little while because, to be honest, I don't necessarily always want to be shouted out immediately and have any kind of focus moved to me because at that point, a lot of people know who I am because Mary has been so supportive of me. And it's not just in her channel, of course, but I definitely don't want to like draw all the attention towards me because that's definitely not the reason that I watch her stream or any of my friends stream. But I guess there are a lot of people that are there for that reason. And I don't think it's an unreasonable thing to be worried about that people are kind of thinking, oh, are you just trying to take advantage? Because I think a lot of people have that little bit of a guard up sometimes being like, oh, is someone in here trying to rake in some viewers or some attention or whatever? I think that's a reasonable thing to be fearful of. But at the end of the day, like people who know you are going to know that that's not the case.
Yeah.
And know that you have good intentions behind your actions.
I get really in my head about how that.
Yeah, I get that. I get that all the time. And I think in those cases, like if I feel that I'm getting that kind of attention all the time and it's making me uncomfortable, then a lot of the time what I'll probably just do is for the next few streams, I'll just kind of lay low a little bit. Because a lot of the time those fears, they come and go for me. And I don't know if maybe that's the same for you, but those insecurities will be very prevalent for a while and then maybe they'll settle for a bit. And so what I'll find is that if I'm getting a lot of those insecurities about how people think or look at me, then I kind of just lay a little bit low and just take some time. Clearly, I just need to be with myself for a bit. And, I can still support my friends. I can lurk in their channel. But if I'm needing that extra bit of space for myself to feel, more comfortable, then I'll just take that time and I'll just be a little bit less talkative. I think people respect and understand that.
Yeah, I think they do too.
There is an element of like self-sabotage in that as well, of like, oh, I don't want people to think that I'm doing this and that, because in some way you feel like you don't deserve that support when of course you do. Of course you deserve that support and you should never sabotage your ability to go further, No,
it is definitely, it's a form of self-sabotage. And that's why I like to talk
we all
about,
do it, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. Like I was trying to be very transparent about things like that because it is a form of self-sabotage. Because if you get too worried and too withdrawn, then now you're cutting yourself off from like communities. You're not just cutting yourself off from like your own growth. You're literally cutting yourself off from like forming meaningful relationships. To
be honest with you, if we want to talk about the biggest thing for me, I mean, was again, I'm going to bring up Mary purely because she kind of did take a chance on me and supported my channel a lot. And there were aspects or like times where I felt so stressed that, oh my gosh, what if she thinks I'm trying to take advantage? What if she thinks that, all of these things that you think about yourself, like, oh God, I don't deserve this support. I don't deserve, and anyone else who continues to come back to my channel, like, what if people think that the reason I got this publicity is just because I'm leeching off of someone, or any of these like fears that you have. And I'm lucky enough that I literally just spoke to Mary about them. And I was like, I'm feeling like this. And we spoke through all of those concerns and communicated openly. And that was the best way to go about it, because she was like, you're being dumb. And I was like, oh, okay. And then that was kind of it. And I haven't felt that way for a very long time because we were just very transparent about our relationship. And it became so much, for me, I was like, oh my God, what if like, my biggest fear was that she wouldn't want to be my friend. Like, I didn't care so much about like anything else other than like, I just wanted Mary to be my friend. I was like, what if she thinks I'm taking advantage and then we can't like hang out? I just want to hang out. And so like having those conversations was very, very important. Yeah. But we all get in our head about these things, I think.
Over time, I think people prove themselves one way or the other. Like, even if you initially go, I'm not sure, a sincere person, you're going to see that over time, just like a non-sincere one, you'll see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And let themselves, prove themselves to you, and in the same way that you would prove yourself to someone else. At the end of the day, like, I think there's also a fine line between that and also just kind of kidding yourself, because like, the reason that people are on Twitch is that they want to grow for the most part. So it's like, there's a very fine line between like, obviously being fake about things, but at the end of the day as well, like if someone is coming forth, like offering ideas or is like in your channel, to some extent, you know, they may be there because they want to gain an audience for themselves. And I think that the problem is when you demonize that. Like, I think there's a balance between the two, as there is with everything. There is nothing wrong with wanting to grow your stream. There's nothing wrong with wanting to put yourself out there more. That's a totally fine thing to do, and that's very natural for a streamer, is just making sure that you go about it in a way that's respectful to your peers.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. We will be continuing on here with our interview with DeimosThea. Curious about what content you do or want to do in the future, or if you want to just stick with what you're doing now.
At the moment, everyone will tell you I play nothing but the Elder Scrolls Online. But in my defense, when I log off my stream, I'm just playing the Elder Scrolls Online. So like, it's just what's happening, okay? But I do have every intention of streaming some more variety here and there as well. There are a lot of games that I really, really love, and that I play off stream every now and again. Overwatch is one of them. I actually did do an Overwatch stream recently, and that felt quite good because I actually started streaming as an Overwatch streamer in 2017. So it was kind of cool to get back to the roots. And I'd love to do more of that because I love Overwatch. It's probably the game that I'm best at. You know, it's a good game. I really, really love it. And it's perfect for streaming because it's so fast paced and fun to watch. I've also been getting into Apex, so I would love to do some more of that as well, because again, it's another shooter, it's very fast paced, and there's something on the line, you know, winning and losing, and that's something that's exciting for a stream. And that with out with FPS games, I would also love to do, and actually I'm planning on doing single player playthroughs of Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim, because I adore them, and seeing as my stream is so predominantly focused on the Elder Scrolls franchise now, it seems like the perfect way to go, and the perfect single player games to play on stream, and do some audience votes for what I choose to do and all of that kind of stuff. I have a lot of ideas, though at the moment I would just say Elder Scrolls Online is definitely my comfort zone, purely because it is what I play the most off stream as well. And like I said, when you stream that game, it just flows, it just plays itself sometimes. And that is something that when you're trying to get into streaming as like, trying to build your community, it's great to have a game that helps you do that. It gives you some support. It's like, this is a nice thing to look at. Look at this pretty tree. Come on, viewers, it's a nice tree, right? There's a lot of stuff I want to do outside of Elder Scrolls Online, but for now, I feel lucky enough to be able to stream that game and have people want to tune in.
I'm curious, though, if you feel like, and you're talking about wanting to do more variety, if you feel like that might eventually pigeonhole you. And the reason I bring that up is because there is a certain amount of backlash, and this is not an ESO specific thing. There are certain people who want to only watch a streamer do one thing because that's their comfort zone. So like, if you only do that thing and you start to move away from it, there is a risk, and some streamers have to deal with backlash from trying new things. Do you worry that there is going to be some level of pigeonholing if you want to try new things?
I would say it is and it isn't. I don't think it's something that actively concerns me, purely because I kind of get their point of view. And maybe that's something that is helpful insight for me to have, but I agree with them. Like, a lot of people do watch purely for the streamer, and that's great, and good for them. But there are other people who genuinely do not want to watch a game, and they're like, no, I do not want to watch this game. I come here for this content. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And so if I ever, if I go into variety, for the most part, I do plan to continue being a predominantly Elder Scrolls Online streamer. A, stay true to the people who have supported me from the ground up, and B, I love the game. And so a lot of the time, at the moment I'm playing here and there quite frequently off stream as well. But I think it's important to also not burn yourself out of a game that you do plan on streaming frequently, because my intention is to keep streaming it, and my intention is to provide the content that people subscribe for or follow for. Yes, I want to branch into variety, but I would never, I'm not saying never, because never is probably the worst thing you can do to yourself if you don't want to pigeonhole yourself. But I'll keep streaming the Elder Scrolls Online as long as people want to keep watching, and if I can throw in the odd variety here and there, and if people want to support that, that means the world to me. The other thing is that actually I think is kind of worth noting is that if you're used to streaming one game, for example, if you're used to playing the Elder Scrolls Online every stream or the majority of your streams, you're going to have a certain level of expertise at streaming that game, and you're going to be comfortable streaming that game, and you're going to maybe put your best foot forward while you're streaming that game, and people are going to be like, oh shit, this person's entertaining, this person knows what they're talking about, even if they don't like me. But you know, sometimes I say the odd word of wisdom and people are like, okay, so she's not a total idiot. But you know, you have that level of comfort within that community, and so if you do branch out, you may also want to look at, when I play this game, is my content still good? I think that's worth noting as well. You know, just because you play another game doesn't mean that people have to think that you're entertaining playing that game.
Do you do other forms of social media or content creation outside of Twitch, or do you predominantly just do your content creation by streaming?
So for me at the moment, my focus is on Twitch, purely because I do agree and look up to people who are able to make content on multiple platforms. But for me, with my schedule and my, like, the way that my attention span works, I just know that I would not create good content on all of those platforms at once. So I don't. However, that doesn't mean that I don't want to. In the future, I would love to have a YouTube channel, and I do have one, I just don't use it. I really want to start singing. I want to start creating YouTube videos and stuff like that, more creative endeavors. And I also would love to start writing and create my own. I actually have stuff in the works as well, but obviously that's something that is not concrete enough to even talk about at this point. But yes, I have other things that I want to create. I want to go into other outlets, but at the moment, my focus is just on being the best streamer that I can be before moving on to anything else. I want to feel like I guess you'll never feel ready to delve into another content area. And that's something that maybe is never going to happen, but I definitely want to see where this goes first.
How do you kind of manage not just the hours you have to put into stream, but the external like responsibilities of streaming to be able to continue to grow and develop your community?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm terrible at it. Like, I'm actually, it's not that I'm terrible at that. I'm actually okay at that. It's just the fact that everything else will inevitably go on hold the moment that something comes into my head about streaming, because I care so much about streaming. And I can't get myself to care about anything else that much, which is kind of not in my favor sometimes. I mean, if you literally ask Mothica, sometimes I'll just be messaging her at 3 a.m. with like all of these ideas that I have, and she's probably just like wakes up in the morning like, what the hell were you doing at 3 a.m. like thinking through all these things? And if I have an idea for stream, anything and everything that I'm doing just goes on hold until I've done it. It's really kind of a little bit like, I don't even know, obsessed. So it can be a little bit unproductive sometimes when I'm trying to balance that with my real life, because it can get in the way sometimes, actually. There's a lot of things that go into streaming that people don't realize go into streaming. I would like to say that I have created a somewhat professional looking channel and a good brand for myself, but that's because I put so much time into it. And it could even be better. But even with what it is right now, that took me so much effort and so much communication and so much work and so much creativity that people don't, I think, realize goes into creating a channel and a brand. Maybe they don't realize quite how much effort goes into it.
It's hard when you're not in that field to know. Because I remember thinking about musicians and friends of mine that were in bands, how being on the road must just be this freaking vacation city to city. And I had no clue until it wasn't for music, but did a traveling troupe sort of stuff with that theater stuff. And I went, oh no. And I felt so bad for all the years I was basically like, oh yeah, so bad driving to city.
Yeah.
Not even, yeah. So I, if people haven't done it, I think it's hard to like visualize it. Curious what the Twitchscape is like for someone who is female navigating that, because I'm on enough Twitch groups to know that when women are successful, it's always because of looks, or it's because of this or that. There's a very contingent of people who are very negative towards female streamers and try to take away their hard work. Like you just mentioned all the work you did. I'm wondering if that's something you've had to deal with and what that's like. And again, that's just not something I'll comment on because I can't. I don't go through that. So
I think it's good that it's given the attention that it is given, because it honestly is one of the worst feelings. And I've had to deal with it quite a lot. And that is as someone at the stage that I'm at, and I cannot imagine the amount of like scrutiny large female streamers are under by people who just assume that the only reason they got to those extreme levels of success was through their gender. I mean, I just don't understand how someone's brain goes to that area, because it's just like, are you deluded? And B, it is so offensive. Of course, you know, there are a lot of people that come into the stream who will, try and pin it on that. Or, for example, recently, actually, I think 2 streams ago, I had someone come into my channel right at the beginning of the stream, who came in and said, oh, imagine having to be a female to get views on Twitch. And I said to them, are you insinuating that the reason that I have a following and a viewership on Twitch is purely because of my gender? Because that would be kind of sexist if that's what you were assuming and that's what you were saying. And they were like, yes, that is what I'm saying. So obviously we insta-banned them from the chat. However, you do get a lot of that. And when you do put so much effort into something, and when you've honestly seen yourself fail more times than you've seen yourself succeed with something that you care so much about, it is really off-putting when people treat you like that, because it's like, no, I worked my butt off for what I've done. Like, you don't get to say that, and it is upsetting. Luckily, I've gotten to the point now where I really can see that it comes from their insecurities and it comes from their resentments that they're acting that way, and I kind of just pity them at that point, that they feel so strongly and negatively towards females for whatever reason it is. And I think it really is, it's upsetting that it's even a thing, and the sooner that we talk about it, the sooner that we can start to change those things, the better for all of us, men and women alike, and anyone in between, however you choose to identify or however you feel that you identify. It is so important that everyone is given the respect for their content, not for anything about their gender, because who fucking cares? Like, it's just so irrelevant. At the end of the day, like, you're always going to get people like that. You're always going to get people who want to negate a woman's success because it makes them feel better about what they haven't achieved. But they're not going to get very far with that attitude.
that's why I wanted to make sure I was giving space for it, because I do think it's important. I only have a couple more questions. One is, what's the plan going forward right now?
Just with Twitch, right?
No, yeah, just with Twitch. Unless you want to answer it differently, that's fine. You can answer it however you want, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, it's just I've applied for a partner. I applied like week and a half ago, week or whatever.
Oh, congrats.
If I get that, then amazing. We will throw a massive party on stream, guys. Like, it's going to be crazy. But if I don't, then I will just keep creating the same content, keep pushing my content, seeing if I can keep improving myself as a streamer and as an entertainer, continue to put the work that I'm putting in, because I have been putting a lot of work into this and I care so much about it. And I want to continue to make good content that people enjoy. I want to branch out. I want to start singing. I keep saying this all the time, but I want to start making singing content. It's just a much bigger learning curve than Twitch, I would say, in terms of like, not that even Twitch is a pretty big learning curve in a lot of ways as well, but I just have absolutely no idea how to make a good quality YouTube video at all. But yes, there's a lot of avenues I want to go down. I don't see Twitch as like an end game by any means. I just like see this as all like a way to grow a bigger community and get my creative passions out there as much as I possibly can. Things that I've cared about and spoken about since I was like 2 or 3 years old. Like, at the moment I learned how to speak, these are the things I wanted to do with my life. Singing and writing being the 2 that are like the most kind of up there. And so if there is any way that I can make that dream be a reality, then I'm just going to keep pushing. And so within these next few months, before COVID is over and, while I've still got, I guess, all of this extra free time to focus on this, I just really, really, really want to keep pushing and see what I can do, because I care so, so much about it. And it's a perfect opportunity to continue to do that, I feel, over any other kind of time in Twitch history.
It definitely has come out over the conversation how passionate you are about Twitch, how much you think about it, how much effort you put into it. So, like you said, now's the time to put all of that into it and see where it goes. And also, I think it's really great that you're thinking about like other things you want to do, such as singing, because Twitch is one of the best ways to form like a closer bond with a community. Because like if you just do YouTube and you don't do Twitch and you don't stream on YouTube either, you do get a following, but it's not the same as Twitch where you're having conversations. So I think Twitch is a good way to build an initial community who might be interested in seeing all of your like creative outlets. Before we wrap up, let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, man, I've actually never said this before. So I stream obviously on twitch.tv/DeimosThea, and I stream on Sundays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 1 p.m. UK time, which at the moment is GMT, but will soon probably change to BST. I'm not sure when, but at some point. But I will update obviously all of that. I also have like an Instagram, but all of my social handles are also DeimosThea, so it's very easy to find.
You will find links to DeimosThea's Instagram, Twitch, and all of that in the description of the podcast.
Yeah, and other than that, I would say look out for stuff on YouTube in the future and keep me like hold it against me if I don't create something on YouTube within the next like before the end of 2021, please. Like I've been saying it for so long, I need to do it.
Appreciate you being here on the podcast today. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you, Locke, for having me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, it's been really great to get to speak about these topics, because I think it's really important that we are kind of upfront about how it is that we personally handle content creation. And yeah, thank you so much for giving me that platform.